Hello again, everyone. We are Gaming by Gaslight, and welcome back to Starbound Frackin Univserse. When we last left off, we had just been working on our little library, and we are now over here. I actually recorded an episode, but then I decided I didn't like it because we didn't really get much done. I kind of got distracted with doing some tenant quests that didn't really end up going anywhere. So I also found out that apparently, I think one of the mods I'm using is causing a glitch with those quests where they ask you to build, like a new home for a new tenant or something. Yes, I think that's the case. And you know what? Wait, why am I doing that like a sucker? As was brought to my attention, there is a nifty little mod here called the Holographic Ruler, which lets you kind of measure distances, and you shift click to set the first angle, like so, and then you just regular left click to set the next one, and then it'll give you the dimensions. And the by one part means that like it's only one block high here. So, all right, that lets me know that I do in fact need to go one more down, and that is that. So we're going to actually start working on that power plant today, because I feel in order to continue actually building the town, we're going to have to, we're going to need to expand here. I don't exactly know how I'm going to do stuff with this, but I think I'm going to use this as our template for this. Like, it's going to be mostly wood and some copper bars and stuff like that. So let's go make some copper bars, because we're going to need those. And probably some more wood as well. Hello. Hello, my good friend, who, as you can see, he has a girlfriend now, because we did a little quest for him. Let's see, copper bar. Wait, copper ladder. Wait, I can make those? I thought these were removed. It's Frackin Univserse had these. Like, I think they show up as, like, they're invisible. So I don't think I'm really supposed to be able to make those. Or wait, are these blocks over here copper bars? What are they called? Is this just copper fence? It is just copper fence. Oh, okay. How do these look? Yeah, they're basically invisible. They're invisible platforms. Because in yon early days of Starbound development, I guess it was going to be considered that you'd be able to like climb on ladders and stuff, but I guess it was decided that no, it'd be just too much work to make that, well, work, and that the work required would not be worth, you know, doing. I'm gonna get rid of these blocks after all, I think. Including you, Mr. Block. Alright, there we go. And we're gonna need to do a bit of terraforming around here, because this is actually higher than the terrain over here, as you can see, so it's going to be interesting. Very interesting indeed. Let's go over here and look. So it uses just these gear blocks. It doesn't really have like a proper floor or anything. So I am going to, with that in mind, our flooring. Like this is down here is where the sewer starts, right? Yes. Wherever you guys are, stop closing the doors. All right. So yeah, seweriness down there. Yes. Okay. All right. So we're going to want to, like, kind of cut down like this. Like so. And I think something like this will be how the power plant ends up looking. Well, actually, yeah, this. I could even do it like this, but I kind of want it to be a bit lower. We're going to need to get some boilers and stuff in here. At some point. And, let's see, we're actually going to need this roof, I think, to keep coming down. Until this is going to be actually probably one of the weirdest, or most unorthodox designs I've got going. There goes the wheat. Alright, so something kind of like this. One more over. Alright. So something like this. Okay. Alright. It's gonna be like the longest roof of all time. Well, at least as far as the roofs I have built are concerned. That is not right. Rid of you. And then all of this, it all must go. Okay. Anyway, but instead of just talking about what I am doing, let's talk about other stuff. So, yeah, last time I was talking about having random weird dreams and writing and stuff. Let's pick up with that. That's always a fun topic. In case you are interested, I kind of, when it comes to writing, I write about basically whatever pops into my head, if I could actually build this. And right now, I am focusing on getting a fantasy novel I've been working on done. I mean, it's done. I'm just doing some editing of it to make sure that it is properly done, basically. Since there's still a couple of things that a couple of names that I sort of used almost as like placeholders, effectively, and I'm not entirely convinced if I like them or not, and stuff like that. I mean, well, we shall, or I shall at some point, be like done with this story, but yeah. Well, I really don't want to procrastinate with it too much, because I feel that's probably been a problem of mine in life, is that I have this bad tendency to procrastinate, because one of my other major character flaws, I would say, if I had to identify character flaws in myself, is that I have a bad habit of, like, completely destroying everything I do as, like, being not good enough. So, you know, that's not exactly helpful at all. And frankly, I think I would have done a lot more with my life thus far if I stopped doing that to myself. As it's silly. Don't destroy yourself before you give yourself a chance, I guess, is the moral of where I'm going with that particular set of ramblings. You know, give yourself a chance to fail, I guess, if that makes any sense at all. Because truly, it is better to fail and learn from that failure than to never do anything at all. And indeed, given how time is a limiting factor for most of us, you know, unless you happen to be an immortal or something, it's generally a good idea to not waste what time you have saying, hey, I'm not good enough to do this. You should instead say, hey, you know what, I may not be good enough, but I'm going to give it the old college try nonetheless. Or something like that. Something to that effect, I suppose, is what you ought to try doing for yourself in life. Give yourself a chance, really. Give yourself the chance to succeed. And even if you fail, you will have learned something from it, because you're still, you know, no one can take knowledge from you. Well, unless some of the horrific science fiction-y stories that you have no doubt at some point read ever come to pass, and in fact they do gain the ability to tamper with your memory and stuff like that. But, you know, as far as I know, such technology does not exist, so let's not freak ourselves out with that until the time comes. Alright, so let's see here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. This is the utmost of the utmost layers. Alright, so something like this. Alright. Okay. So you. Alright. Symmetry is very important. Alright, we're gonna want to do more. Like, we're gonna have to have, like, some kind of entrance into the sewer, I reckon. From here. Because that kind of makes sense to me. We're also gonna need some steampunk boilers and broilers and things. But, for now... Oh, well, let's take a quick... You know what, I'm getting the distinct impression... Yeah, I need to go up one more. You see, this is why I am so glad this was recommended that I use this holographic ruler doohickey. I didn't mention it, right? I actually recorded this episode and then decided I didn't like it. Pretty sure I also explained that. Is someone dying? I think it's someone down below. And we don't care about the people down below. At least not yet. We'll care about them eventually, but for now... For now, they can go die in a ditch. No, that's not very nice either. That's not very nice at all. We should have more respect for our fellow Earthicans. Or what was this planet's name? Kamara, Bara, something or other. It's got a name. That's the important thing there. A name I can't remember right off the top of my head. And why am I doing this? Because I started doing this and then... Yeah. Gotta get a... Oh, I feel a sneeze. Coming on. Anyway, getting back to where I was way back at the beginning. As far as writing is concerned, what do I write about? Mostly whatever pops into my head. Right now, fantasy. I also... For the longest time, I kind of got stuck writing this science fiction novel that... It never felt quite right, so I kept rewriting it over and over and over again for years. And it never got right. And what I finally decided to myself is that the problem is that basically I was writing like 2 or possibly even 3 stories and then just ramming them all into the same book. And now I decided to separate that stuff, and I've just kind of left it for now as like an idea that can sit in my head for a while. And at some point I will come back to it. I don't know when, but at some point, and I will do something cool with it. What that something cool is, I don't really know. Let's see here. Alright, so after that, 2 and 3. Okay. Again, symmetry. And, okay, 1 more. Like you. And then, from there, we have our little cobblestones here, which we're almost out of. Alright, and this is how we're going to figure out how to fit everything. Of course, it occurs to me, maybe because this is here, this should be part of this building. That could also make sense, but maybe I'll make them as 2 separate buildings, or I might eventually tear this down if I decide I don't need it anymore. Depends. We've got a lot of stuff. I'll get rid of some of these blocks, because I don't really need them, and they're just crowding up my inventory at this particular point in time. Here we are, squeeze those blocks together, squeeze these blocks together. We have only so much room, so let's see. We have this. And, you know, I'm going to have to tear down this roof anyway, because it's got all kinds of grass on it, and that's gross. That doesn't work. But yes, writing. That's what we're talking about today. That is today's subject of investigation. Writing. And basically, what else do I do when I'm writing? Well, I write. That's... silly thing to say because, you know, it's obvious. Anyway, I guess, you know what? Probably the real question you're probably thinking to yourself at this point is, Gaslight, if you're going to talk about your writing, tell us what you're writing right now. Well, my fantasy novel, as it were, is... It actually originated in a dream I had, like, years and years ago, and then I, like, wrote it down, and then I did a little bit with it, then I set it aside, then I did a bit more, then I set it aside, and then, like, just recently, I actually finally properly sat down and wrote it and, like, built, like, this whole lore Bible that I'm continuously building up because I want the world to feel like it's alive and that it, you know, there's something to it. And basically, the story starts off in a town, well, a city, if you will, in fact, called Haven. I know that probably sounds kind of generic, but it sounded right, and in the dream, that's what you know, like, prompted the idea for this. That's what the city's name was. It was Haven, and Haven is a little town that was founded by thieves and outlaws and pirates. Basically, fantasy Australia, if you will. And it is a town that it's technically like part of like a larger empire kingdom, like political entity. But it's treated like an independent because it's kind of like geographically isolated and stuff like that. And it is located in a rather unique area because it, well, you know what, I'm just rambling. Let's stick to the facts. Basically, the story is about a young boy named Cole who, he lives in this city of Haven, and you know, he's going about doing his stuff, his thing, and because it's an oceanside city, by the way, I should probably mention that. It borders this little area, or it borders a reef called the Silver Reef, and it's called that because it grows silver coral, which is obviously magic, because otherwise there'd be dead coral and gray and stuff, but it's silver. And it glows at night, you know, it absorbs moonlight and, like, you know, it's all pretty and rainbowy, kaleidoscopy and stuff like that. But, and it is also inhabited by a race of mer people, if you will. Though they're kind of more like amphibian people, I guess, based on the way I describe them, because they can walk on land and do stuff like that. But anyway, they're called the Sea Folk. And Cole is friends with a young Sea Folk girl named Coral. And one day, while they're just having their little adventures out on the reef, they meet this crab called Home. Just a tiny little hermit crab, which is being chased by Anchor, who is the spirit shark guardian of the Silver Reef, which keeps, you know, like, evil people out. And I don't really do anything with it in the story itself, but I feel like there is probably, like, a whole story there about why this city that was supposedly founded by pirates and thieves and outlaws would actually, like, where they got the magical capability to summon such a creature. And, you know, that's a little thing that I can do in the future. But for now, the main story, basically, this crab, they befriend this crab, and the crab eventually explains why he was being chased, and they go out into Anchor's territory, who, you know, as a spirit shark, he doesn't like people going into his territory for some reason, and they find an amulet out there. I know, that's, like, totally original and stuff, but this amulet, you see, it's well, that basically is what kickstarts the real plot. Once, like, the first couple of chapters are just, you know, kind of exploring around and living their lives out in this Silver Reef place, but then eventually they find this amulet, and then it turns out that, you know, it's supposedly magical and gives power to whoever holds it, allegedly. Could just be a worthless trinket for all anyone really knows, but there are people who believe it has power. And, you know, from there, we get caught up in a whole series of events that eventually take us away from Haven and out into the wider world. Which I guess is sort of a bit, maybe, of a reversal from the usual fantasy kind of thing, where the hero is, like, in some, like, you know, backwoods town that nothing interesting ever happens, whereas Haven is, like, you know, like, magic and excitement central as far as, like, the implications of its background. At least that's the impression I get from it. And, you know, some of the outside world is more mundane, some is more magical, and basically this adventure takes them around the world. They're being pursued by a bad guy, and, you know, secrets are revealed, betrayals are there any betrayals? Basically, it plays out like your fairly typical fantasy adventure, but my plan, you see, is that this is just book one, and book one is basically, you know, like the whole save the world from the generic Doomsday villain kind of thing, or, you know, stop the generic Doomsday artifact from falling into the hands of the villain kind of plot. But the idea is that then as the series goes on from there, it builds up into something much, much more. I don't know what that much, much more is yet. And you know what? I am going to actually kind of start tearing some of this down and taking it over here. Just because. And that eventually, like, to a certain extent, this whole amulet, I'm thinking to myself, is going to be almost like, it's basically like a plot excuse just to get things going. But it's not really. Like, there is going to be, like, an actual repercussions for this. Like, people die trying to obtain this amulet. And for what? Is, like, I guess the ultimate question of the story is, what were people dying for to obtain this thing? And then I figure as the series goes on, there's going to be a, like, slowly it goes from being, like, just like your typical fantasy adventure into being, like, into, like, having, like, ties to, like, politics, like, not real world politics, but, like, dealing with the politics of sort of like a medieval realm where magic plays a role. You know, like how would a world where magic exists? Like, basically, like, having access to a nuclear bomb in, like, the 10th and 11th century AD kind of thing. Or CE, if you want to be, you know, correct with, you know, the fact that it's now called current era and before current era and stuff like that. I personally like the sound of BC and AD better, so I still go with that, even though that's not really in vogue anymore. Anyway, That also has nothing to do with anything. Yeah. Anyway, I think I did a terrible job of that. I always get a bit too kind of caught up in explaining, and then I never really, I feel anyway, like properly explain the story. But that's kind of like the gist of it, I guess, is starts off more or less as your just standard kind of, possibly even cliched adventure novel, but then I want it to build up, and then there's much more going on, and there are plots within plots and stuff like that. Maybe a way to describe it, like, when I've told other people about it, some people are like, hey, that sounds like Game of Thrones. And I think to myself, well, you know, I mean, that's not a... It's a favorable comparison, I assume. It's not... I'm not really going for, like, strictly Game of Thrones as far as, like, narrative is concerned, but that's, like, Game of Thrones light, maybe? Could be a way of describing, the story, and, or, like, the general kind of themes and stuff that goes on, I guess. Maybe. Like, I feel Game of Thrones is mostly told from the perspective of, like, the actual power players, in the sense that most of the protagonists are nobles and stuff, whereas a big focus that I want to do with this story is, that I'm writing, is to have most of the protagonists that, like, there are lords and stuff who play pivotal roles and stuff, but a lot of the key players, I think, in my story, are going to be more so the people who are affected by the plots of nobles and stuff, and just to kind of explore, you know, what would happen, again, if, like, weapons, like, basically the equivalent of nuclear weapons in the form of magic, were available, like, how that would affect, like, real-world politics and stuff like that, and how the balance of power would effectively revolve around whoever could control such magic. And I don't think that's exactly, like, the most original idea ever. I'm pretty sure there's got to have been other stories throughout history that have basically done that same thing, but it's my take on it, I guess. That's the important thing. It is my take on that kind of idea. And I hope that all kind of comes together in a sensical and enjoyable to read kind of way. I mean, I like it, but then again, I wrote it, so, you know, that's that. And, yeah, my real hope, actually, especially now that I've, like, actually, well, mentioned the fact that I'm working on a novel, now that I have told you guys about it, there is a certain pressure, I think, to actually follow through and get this thing published, because, you know, now there's, well, people who actually know what I'm up to. I mean, like, my family knows that I write, and they encourage me and stuff like that, but at the same time, well, they're my family, so anything they say is naturally going to be kind of biased, because, you know, they want to see me happy and stuff. So, there is that. Plus, not everyone in my family is actually interested in reading fantasy, so, you know, there's that to consider as well. Yeah, let's see here. How are we doing? 12 by 1. Alright. So, got this, and this. This is 11 by 1. This is 12 by 1. Alright, make a mental note of it, because I'm going to have to grab this wood. Anyway, but I would be interested in hearing what you guys think of this, probably terribly described, idea, this story of mine that I'm working on. What you think of it, whether you think it has potential or not. And the few people outside of my family who have actually read it seem to be quite favorable to it, so... Because I took a writing class in university, which is where I got most of my work on this particular story done. And because I also felt that taking a writing class would be good, just because it would actually force me to let other people actually see my writing and comment on it, and I could work on being confident enough to critique other people's work. You know, because you can't just expect people to critique your work without you giving a little something back in return, in, you know, terms of sharing your opinions on other people's work. So, yeah. This is also kind of a weird... So I'm going to move this boiler at some point, I think. Anyway, but that's basically my bit on that. So, yeah. Overall, basically, I guess the point I am getting across, or trying to get across there, is that I'm excited about my writing, and I think it has potential, but then again, of course I would think it has potential. I'm the one who wrote it. But I don't even know what I'm doing with these pipes, so you know what, I'm just gonna stop here for now. Actually, no, you know what, let's just bring the pipe all the way over here like this. Then just kind of have it, like, just kind of nebulously go into the ceiling there for no particular reason. And, yeah. Ooh, you know what I should do? If I can find something, is maybe get little things that can puff out smoke or something so it looks like they're actually doing something. Maybe. I don't know. We'll figure out stuff as we go along. But anyway, so yeah. That's basically today's topic of while we're building, is just stuff I have written, I guess. And I'm beyond fantasy. Like other stuff like another like big thing that I'm kind of like working on and off in my spare time when it comes to story ideas is what I guess I would call... Actually, what would you describe? Like something vaguely Lovecraftian? Like vaguely in the sense that there is Lovecraftian-esque elements, but it is not actually a Lovecraft story itself. I do enjoy a little bit of Lovecraft. And actually, a better thing to describe it would be basically sort of like a collection of short stories and bits that probably like if you've ever heard of it, like the SCP Foundation kind of like esque stories and whatnot, or what would be another thing? There was a TV show called Sanctuary, or maybe what is it? Warehouse 13? Was it Warehouse 13? Basically, you know, I'll call them like weird science stories. You know, just like stuff with the paranormal and stuff of that sort of nature. It's kind of weird having all this copper here like this. But it's not terrible. I don't know if this is like the perfect design, but you know what? It's kind of growing on me. So I'm gonna stick with it. Anyway, yeah, so something like that, like a collection of stories that mostly deal with the exploits of an organization that goes around and basically, you know, protects the world from all the weird and, like, unknowable horrors that lurk just outside the corner of your eye, as it were, to put it in a perhaps overly flowery and poetic fashion. Because, I don't know, like, I have a lot of weird dreams that could fall under, like, just the broad umbrella of, like, Lovecraftian or cosmic horror, or however you would want to describe it, or just supernatural horror. And I figured to myself, you know, rather than trying to write individual stories about all these things, maybe set them in a shared universe, and then, you know, do something with that. Because that could be cool. You know, I might end up actually just tearing this particular thing down, or maybe making it into a building of its own at some point, like a warehouse or something. Anyway, so yeah, that's just, I guess, a taste, as it were, of some of the stuff I write. And I've probably have, like, more ideas for stories than I will ever be able to write in my entire life, so that's always a good thing. It's better to have too many ideas than too few, I suppose. And where did those lanterns go? Here we are. And my hope, of course, like I said, last episode, I believe it was, is that, you know, I'd like to, like, I guess, at the end of the day, when I think about, like, what I want to do, like, why, what, like, at the end of the day, like, when, you know, once I am dead and gone and, like, dust, if anyone would ever ask, what did this guy do? Like, why did he exist? Why was he here? Basically, I just want to entertain people. You know, with stories and adventures and stuff to, I guess, add a little bit of, I'll say whimsy and wonder to the world. Especially a world that these days often seems so very dark and cynical. Oh my, look at the time. It's time to wrap this episode up. But more than just, like, the mundane world. Something to look forward to. I have no idea where I'm going with any of this. I feel like it's getting into a weird spot where I'm almost being completely senseless. Which might well be the case. Also, but yeah, this episode's gone on long enough. That means it's definitely time to wrap this episode up. So until the next time, thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Don't forget to leave me a like or maybe a comment down below to let me know what you're thinking. I will see all of you in the next video.